Feels so weird.
One thing after another.
It feels so weird.
I brought my mask. I thought if I start
Yeah, I am.
We had a
Finally coming back.
room full of
Thank goodness.
crazies, I was
But you
putting
look
them
great.
back
Well,
on.
thanks. Oh, now you look good when you pray.
How does that work?
I don't know. Well, curled my hair, but I didn't put any makeup on.
There's cups in that cold dispensers out in the hall, that water fountain.
Oh, yeah. My daughter was on the set today and she was standing out in front of the doors for the set. And there was Michelle Obama driving Ellen. They were going to her state.
Wow.
That's so cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. She sent me a little video. I said, well, that's quite the day.
So did you do anything besides
Lounge and eat.
Awesome. Sounds like my kind of vacation.
That's all I did. I had such a good time. It was good to get away.
Absolutely. Yeah, sunshine, especially since the weather here.
Yes, yeah, it was absolutely beautiful. I said, thank you for the beautiful cards. And the rain, just.
She ran upstairs and made Sam sign it himself.
Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Delta Township Board to order. Will the board members and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Bowen,
Present.
trustee Brewer,
Present.
trustee Cascarella,
Present.
trustee Mohica,
Here.
treasurer Fedewa. Clerk Clark is present, supervisor Fletcher.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. A motion to excuse Treasurer Fedewa.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. We have the agenda before us. Any additions or deletions? If not, a motion to approve would be in order. Andrea,
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
it's been moved. Is there support?
Support.
There is support. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Public comments. Anybody here in this audience this evening would like to speak on any topic? Now is your opportunity. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move down to the consent agenda this evening. What's the pleasure of the board on the items on our consent agenda? Yes, Glenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
There is support. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on approving the consent agenda this evening.
Trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Cascarella,
Yes.
trustee Mohica,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
treasurer Fedewa. Clerk Clark is yes, supervisor Fletcher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we move down to the items of new business. We have a variety of board and commissions appointments. I should say in a lot of cases, reappointments and some new appointments. For the Planning Commission, we have Doug Kaczynski, Jim Schweitzer, and Arnold Weinfield. I know Jim's in the audience there. If anybody needs to grill Jim on his years of service there. For the Zoning Sign Board of Appeals, we have Brenda Frenzel. I don't think Brenda is here tonight. For the Parks and for Economic Development Corporation, we have a new appointee. Ashley Willis is being appointed for a term. Ashley is here in the audience this evening. Moving down, we have Parks and Recreation and Cemeteries Commission. Bob Waldron is a reappointment. And then we have Antonia Kraus is a new appointee replacing Laura Miller, who resigned. Are you here? Yep, absolutely. And then Non-Discrimination Complaint Review Committee, Andrea Kincaid is being appointed for a full 3-year term. Andrea, you here? Yep. And Delta Township Library Board, Robert Spagnuolo is being reappointed for a 4-year term. And then on the Delta Township Saginaw Highway Corridor Improvement Authority, Tony McGaldy, Peggy Vaughn Payne is being reappointed. Their terms were the ones coming up this year. And then the last one, Marcus Leslie, I'm actually withdrawing. He actually called me today and said that he thought it through and wasn't quite sure he had the time to commit. So I'm going to withdraw that one. We'll come back at another time with that. So I will move the adoption of these, remove that the aforementioned persons be appointed to the township boards and commissions, and that the clerk is hereby directed to send notification to all of those selected, informing them of their appointment. Is there support?
Support.
There is support. We'll open up for discussions, and if any of the appointees would like to come up and the new folks would like to just introduce yourself to the board, you're certainly be welcome to do so. And if board members have any questions or anything for anybody, yeah, come on up, Amy.
Hi, my name's Amy Kraus. I am a 2-year, just 2.5-year resident of Delta Township. Very happy to be here. I come from a background of public service. I spent 26 years with the city of Lansing in procurement and as the city treasurer. I don't know if you want me to run now based on that last statement or still want me to stay, but I look forward to, I served on and currently serve on the City of Lansing Employee Retirement System Pension Board, which I serve as the vice chair, and have served on a variety of other public sector-based boards as well as private charity boards, and look forward to the opportunity to give back to my community based through the Parks and Recs. I'm open for any questions or comments at this time.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for her? All right, well, we appreciate your willingness to serve our community.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ashley, did you want to say anything?
Good evening. My name is Ashley Willis. I'm a business owner and a resident from Delta Township. So I've been a resident for 10 years and also a homeowner. Just love all of the developments that are happening in Delta Township. And so just happy to be a part of the Economic Development Corporation Board. So I also happen to be on several other boards as well too, but just really looking forward, and it's an honor to be here today as well too.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, Brenda.
No question, just a comment. Thank you so much for serving. I know you do so much in the city and in the region, and I'm so proud to have you all both really joining us. And when we get you, it's like getting your husband too. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, you realize that.
That's a win-win.
Right. Well, thank you.
What is your business?
It's Michigan Premier Events. We're an event management corporation. So we do associations, government, and corporation, association, and government event management. So we do a lot of programs in the development corporation as well too. Have a lot of networks with a lot of different organizations who are in this sector. So which is really an honor to actually now do the work. If that makes sense. So
Wonderful. Welcome.
yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. And Andrea, you want to say something?
Hello, my name is Andrea Kincaid, and I would just like to thank you for the opportunity. I'm really excited about the appointment. And it's funny because at the end of last year, when I was thinking of my personal goals for this year, I said, this year, because every year I put it off putting in an application, and I said, no, this year I'm going to do it. I'm going to, put it in and we'll see what happens. And no sooner than I put it in, I got a call. So I just think I'm thankful for the opportunity. And I look forward to serving my community. I've been in Delta Township for, I think it's over 16 years. And so I think it's wonderful. I love it here and I think it's the best. And I look forward to being able to serve in this capacity. And any questions for me or
Any questions? We just appreciate your willingness to serve. It really helps
Yeah,
having
thank you.
serve.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for being here.
All
No
right.
questions. So any further discussion?
I just want to remind everybody, you'll get a letter asking you to come in to be sworn in and sign the oath book, just so you know.
And whatever board you've been appointed to, the staff from that area will reach out to you and then provide you with orientation and everything. So you'll hear from somebody shortly after tonight on next steps and everything, but getting sworn in is the first step moving forward. So if there's no other discussion from the board, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, y'all, and thank you for coming in tonight. Next up is manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Board members, not a lot to report tonight, although we did get notice that we got our 11th in a row, our 11th year in a row award, a 5-star economic development award from E-Cities. So we'll be preparing a press release to go out. So just recognizes the high level of economic development work we do as a township, and of course our economic development department, but really all of our departments that fit together to draw in business and create quality of life and the atmosphere for businesses here. Just a reminder to the board, I think Mary Worland will send you an email this year, the annual chamber dinner, usually at around this time. This year it's going to be June 16th. It's going to be more of a, walking dinner. So there's no tables. So if you're interested in that, she'll send out an email and we'll get everybody tickets. The Delta magazine should be in your mailboxes. So that went out, and pretty much that's all I have, Mr. Supervisor, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions for anybody? Okay, Brian? We'll move to the committee of the whole, and we have tonight a discussion of the water resource recovery facility bids for the first phase of that. So I'll turn that over to Wall from staff to present to you.
I will start off. So tonight was supposed to be a ceremonious and momentous occasion to award a bid for phase 1 of the wastewater plant. So February 24th, we took bids, and it's no secret right now we're in pretty extraordinary times with supply chain, labor shortages, inflation, you name it. Kind of a perfect storm came together. So we wanted to bring back more of a discussion. Obviously, the bids did not come in how we wanted. So we've been working since February 24th when we took the bids to bring back a discussion to the board and kind of craft a strategy moving forward that hopefully the board is comfortable with. First, I just wanted to give just a little background. Of course, most of this is review, but we started in 2018 really going through a systematic master plan of the water resource recovery facility, of which, as you know, the newest portion of the plant is 40 years old. So really the entire plant is in need of work. And that's why we really went through a systematic master planning. In 2019, we finished that master planning. And given the scope of the project, we brought on Black & Veatch, another engineering firm, to do a peer review of the scope and the preliminary basis of design for the plant, just to make sure we were on the right path and to make any significant changes before we went into heavy design work. In 2020, kind of as another component of the whole holistic approach, we did a comprehensive rate study to really create a long-term plan of moderate increases to rates to help pay for the significant improvement. And then the holistic design process, part of the master plan, our staff, and really a credit to Rick and his folks and Ernie and engineering, have put thousands of hours in, along with our engineers, Tetra Tech, into really looking at a holistic approach, which will create a resource recovery facility that will work out best and be most efficient in the long run for the township. All through the process, we've had really extraordinary cooperation with Eagle, which has been very helpful in the fact that we're going through the state revolving loan fund, but we've kept them apprised all through the design process, bouncing questions back and forth, both on the financing side and on the engineering side. And they recently recognized us as being one of probably the best municipalities that they've ever worked with in terms of our communication and responsiveness to that. So I think it's paid off in terms of their responsiveness to us. So that brings us to February 24th and our bid results. And there I'll turn it over to Ernie and Rick.
Thank you, board members. Manager Reed. So needless to say, with the numbers on the screen, not a result that we were hoping to see in terms of total dollars for the project. In all, we received 3 bids ranging from just under 74 million to about 89 million. There was actually another bid from a very interested bidder that we've worked with before that had to drop out at the very last minute due to some bonding difficulties on their end, not being able to secure a bond. We did have some conversation, or they volunteered some conversation just in terms of where they thought they were going to come in, and they were in the same kind of low 70s range with what they were seeing for what their bid would look like on bid day. So even though the number is not where we want it to be, we do feel like it was a competitive process, that we have, at least 3 data points all around the same number that would indicate that this is what the market's bearing right now, given all the challenges that Manager Reed mentioned. Even during bidding and leading up into bidding, we had a concern given what's going on in the market. So we did take some steps, including crafting a deduct alternate to remove the grip building work, which is one of the processes that we felt like could potentially get pushed into phase 2 without a lot of harm to our operations out there, and perhaps buy us some leeway if we needed it. And so that one, you can see on the right-hand column there, those are about a $3 million deduct. So if we want to accept that change, that would basically pull that out and lower that base bid cost by $3 million. Keep in mind that was work that would have to be done in phase 2. And so the reason we decided to pull it out is because there was some other work in the basement of that building and around adjacent to that building that makes sense to package it together. So it could go either way, but this is one opportunity to shave some dollars right off the top. Other things we did is during bidding, we heard that the contractors were very concerned about the schedule due to long lead times and procuring materials, everything from pipe to rebar, steel, aluminum. It doesn't matter right now. It's very tough to get materials. And so we extended the schedule, trying to give them as much flexibility as possible. So we had 6 months to the project schedule. We also, within the specifications with Tetra Tech, wrote in several different options in terms of materials for things like piping, so that at time of bids, if one material is harder to get than another, the contractors would have an option of a couple different materials to try to, again, keep cost and flexibility, cost down and flexibility built into their plan. And then just aggressively advertising and communicating with potential bidders. Even though we received just 3, we did have 9 or 10 attend the pre-bid meeting. We had set all of them were on the plan holders list. I actually heard a couple of them that dropped out because there was such good coverage that they didn't feel like they could compete with some of the ones that were on the list. So unlike some projects that I've bid recently, and we've only gotten 1 or even 2 bids, we feel like at least we got 3 bids, and there was a 4th there that had fully intended to submit. So I don't know what more we could have done in terms of trying to get the word out. And these are from the general contractor's standpoint. In conducting some post-bid interviews with the 2 low bidders, we heard time and again how they struggled to get subcontractor coverage on some of these different packages too. So it's just a lot of work out there right now, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of private development, and especially in the Lansing region with big projects like Amazon and auto owners and GM Ultium plant coming. There's just a lot out there right now. So but in reviewing their bids, we did feel like they had everything covered with good subcontractors, and these are bids that we think we could move forward with. Next slide, please. So since we opened the bids, realized how much over budget things came in at, we as a staff tried to come up with some options for y'all to consider. And we came up with these 6 options, and I'm going to say right off the bat, they're not maybe all necessarily feasible or even something we would recommend, but we wanted to show you kind of the full range of what is possible to do moving forward. Next slide, please. So option 1, rejecting the bids. Again, we don't really feel this is feasible. We've got a lot of age, condition, and capacity concerns with that existing plant. Obviously, if we didn't need to do these improvements, we wouldn't have put all this time, effort, and money into getting to where we're at. So doing nothing isn't really an option. There's also Eagle requirements in terms of our additional treatment that we're going to have to do starting in potentially as early as 2027. And again, just the enormous effort that we've taken to get to this point just doesn't seem like a feasible option. Next option would be to reject these bids and then to rebid the project at a later date. That's kind of through the lens of if you think we're in a bubble, pricing bubble that could burst and prices could actually go down. And you're just trying to wait out a tough market. I guess from staff standpoint, we don't believe that's likely to occur. There's a lot of forces at play, including increased state and federal funding towards infrastructure projects similar to this that we think are likely to drive demand for these same services and materials for several years. So, when would it drop down? When would the market drop down? That could start into causing us increased risk of dealing with failures of aging infrastructure. We do have permit deadlines from Eagle that are currently in place for 2027. Will the costs actually go back down to more normal levels? Our thoughts are that they're likely to stabilize. The rate of increase is likely to level off, but it seems to be a big if they will actually drop down, and probably not likely. We do have a limited labor supply, and that's not likely to change quickly. And with all the money coming to market for the infrastructure work, it's just not likely to improve drastically to drive costs down in the near term. Next option. So this, again, we reject all of the bids and conduct a value engineering effort. What that would look like is, again, rebidding it at a later date. But we would spend some amount of time probably with a new third-party consultant to look at other ways that we could maybe attack the project and do things a little different. I guess the concern we've got with this approach is, we did a lot of that work up front with a peer review process that Brian mentioned, getting another set of eyes on Tetra Tech's work way back in the study when we were analyzing alternatives. The reality is throughout the process, we've put a lot of effort into really kind of maximizing the function, reliability, resiliency. We haven't put in a lot of non-essential features, if any. So there's not a lot of fluff in this project. And so we really, I guess, struggle to see how, well, let me step back. Not only is there not any fluff, we've used pretty standard time-tested methods that are going to achieve the results we need over a long period of time. And so we just don't feel like that there's a high likelihood of being able to find some magic bullet to lop off significant dollars on this. Next option. So option 4 is delaying the award, which was, we were hoping to get to next Monday night. But delaying it long enough to try to really chop some dollars out of this project. But what that would look like is removing some scope. And like I said, there's not a lot of extra built into this project in terms of, we're not designing for double the capacity, so hydraulically, treatment wise, we've got a fairly modest growth amount. So what that probably looks like is now you're gonna pull scope out of phase 1 and delay it till phase 2. So at that point, you're not really saving, it's a temporary savings. And you're betting that, that more than likely prices will continue to rise, even if they flatten off and have, more modest increases. It's only a temporary savings, and you're gonna pay for it at some point. Under the scenario, though, we could get to construction yet this year. This process will take a little longer to work through those big, kind of taking big chunks of the project out and kind of figuring out the temporary workarounds. But we think we can probably still get to construction by September of this year. Maybe just go back real quick. So just that second bullet point there, we're estimating, in the $3 to $10 million range of dollars. That's really a guess of what we could maybe pull out of this. So you're still talking a very significant, total project cost. Next slide, please. Option 5 is a delaying the award for Monday night, working with our 2 lowest bidders to try to achieve some efficiencies and reductions of cost. We're estimating maybe in the $1 to $2 million range. These are things that would not remove scope from the project, but would look at alternative ways, materials, approaches, based on kind of feedback that we're getting from these bidders, to try to whittle some things down, maybe make it, more efficient on their end, which hopefully, result in a smooth project. These would not be things that would impact the process or operations long-term or the durability long-term. And we believe that we could get this done in the next month or so. So we'd be back in about a month with a slightly whittled down project that gets us to an award, and then a start about a 1 month delay on the construction start from May till June. And then lastly, option 6 would be to award the project as planned next week. That could be done with or without deleting the grit building work. I think staff at this point would be prepared to recommend deleting that for now and moving forward without that. But much beyond that, that's not going to give us enough time to do any cost saving exploration with the 2 low bidders. So it kind of locks us into both who we're going to work with and what that number looks like. And so, we could move forward next Monday if you'd like, and stay on our original track of construction. Next slide. So staff recommendation at this point is for option 5, which is to kind of work with the 2 low bidders over the next month or so, get this pared down as much as we can, without really compromising the project goals. We would probably recommend accepting the grit building deduct, and we'd be back to you before April 15th in order to kind of stay on that June or early July start date for construction. With that, I'll let Courtney come up and talk about some financials.
The fun part. So the good news on the financial front is that we did contact the state, obviously, after the bids came in, and they can accommodate the higher cost. They had some extra SRF money this year. So it is something that we can wrap into the loan without that being an issue. We did pass the bond notice of intent at 90 million, hoping that would cover phase 1 and 2. So that actually worked unexpectedly to our advantage. In this case, because we don't have to do any republication of that ad and re-referendum of the bond amount. Our interest rate is locked in at the 1.875%. So if this was an open market, we'd also be struggling with rising interest rates. But we do have that interest rate through October 1st. So user rates, the original rate study, I was just looking at the original and the bond payment estimate for all three phases. This was originally a 3-phase project, is about the same as what we're looking at for the bond payment for this phase. So it will have an impact on user rates. We had currently planned for there to be about a 7.25% increase for several years. That will likely need to be higher. We can talk about ways, do we do a higher increase? There's a lot of different ways we can do that. Once we kind of pick a direction, we can bring back more detailed information. But the good news is that, and the other issue I didn't point out was that we do have the necessary bonding capacity, because that's another thing I would say a majority of municipalities would run into. There's only a certain amount of bonding you can do based on your state equalized value, and our only debt is in the water fund and the library. So the library building. So it's very low. So we have plenty of bonding capacity. So we're not impacted by any of those or restrained by any of those if we do decide we need to move forward. And we provide you every year with rate comparisons, and we are one of the lowest rate in the area. Not something we were looking to change, but it does give us, if we were already at the very high end, I think, it would be a little bit more of a struggle. So, but we'll be able to provide further information kind of once we flesh out the option.
So a couple positives we have, it can often feel like the sky is falling. We do have $6 million in state infrastructure funds toward the wastewater recovery facility. That's a part of the GM infrastructure funds to help pay for the extra capacity. So that's helps towards the 73 million or low bid. We'll continue to be aggressive in terms of any upcoming infrastructure funds. My understanding to this point is the federal infrastructure money has not come down yet. It's still waiting on feds to pass that. Likely there will be some of that money that's steered towards the SRF fundings in each state, hopefully for some principal forgiveness. I think at this point, there's a certain percentage that they say will have to be used for principal forgiveness. I don't remember if that's at the state or a Fed rule, but I don't know any details with that until they pass that. Right now, I know the state has Senate Bill 565, which currently has a little over $3 billion towards infrastructure in water and sewer. That my understanding is they're hoping to move that next month, and supposedly will probably go through many revisions. Right now, there's not a ton in there specific for wastewater plants. Hoping to get more added. We've been talking to both MML and MTA about that, and I think they are pushing for that too, because water plants, sewer plants, distribution system, and collection systems are a big part of the infrastructure. Not saying that any of the other programs and funds that they have in there are not useful, but for being helpful for municipalities, we really need more money pushed towards that. So we'll continue to be aggressive in that. Of course, we've had quite a bit of growth in the township, and we have Delta Crossings just submitted their multifamily plan. We have Redwood going in. We have quite a bit of residential. We've had commercial growth, and of course some industrial growth, especially with GM. So as far as our rate structure, we will have additional revenue coming in through there that will help in the long term. Our water fund is still in excellent shape. Comparatively, it's our best fund. So we have a little flexibility in terms of on the water side in terms of how we shape rates or that type of thing. And then just other things to keep in mind as we get into the discussion. You know, we still have the future phases of the plant that we'll have to work through. So we'll continue to evaluate options to pare down phase 2 or you know, potentially move some stuff into phase 3. The benefit of our future phases is we have a little bit more time to plan and at least now we'll have the benefit of seeing a little bit more what's ahead of us. Whereas, you know, this time we're kind of caught in just the circumstances of the bidding environment. We do have the Eagle requirements to meet in 2027. At this point, we're talking with them in terms of what options there are for that. And we also have to keep the financial ability capacity to do other projects in our system because it's the plant doesn't exist in a bubble. So we have quite a few other projects that we'll have to do, and those were accounted for in the rate studies, and we'll continue to account for them as a whole for the system. We are in a position. Obviously, we have a lot of high stakes economic development and users of our system. So we don't really have the benefit of having, you know, stuff break down. So that's as Rick mentioned or Ernie mentioned, it's a big worry for us with the age of our plant right now. And I think as Ernie mentioned, one of the other slides too is I don't know if we see any type of relief in the near future. The infrastructure needs across the nation, you read different reports. I mean, it's like $1 trillion deficit in terms of what needs are across water and sewer. So I think sadly, it's a problem that's not going to go away. The competition for these projects is going to continue to grow. So it's just the environment that we're in right now as we keep in mind for the discussion. So, and then next steps, just wanted to get feedback from the board, and then we'll respond and bring back for formal action. We would have to repost the environmental assessment public notice. If you remember, we posted that in December and January for the plant, and then work towards a loan closing. So with that, Mr. Supervisor, happy to entertain questions. We have all of our staff here, and Brent from Tetra Tech is also here if there's any questions for Tetra Tech.
Andrew?
Yeah, Brian, I had a question for you and then probably a couple that might be more for Ernie, but you were just mentioning some potential options with principal forgiveness with the infrastructure funds and under Senate Bill 565. Are you expecting when there's action and appropriation of those funds through, various means by the state legislature, is there an expectation that those will be some provisions of that nature will be made retroactively? So if we move forward, we'll be eligible for that? Or is that just for future phases that we would then proceed with?
I don't know, to be honest, what my expectation is. What I've communicated with MML and MTA and will with our legislators is, I mean, this really is COVID related, so there should be relief for us. And that is what MML and MTA are pushing for, is these were unexpected circumstances that, the folks who are going out to bid and in this quarter and the next quarter, we're facing circumstances that really couldn't have been planned for. We've been planning for 4 years and we're caught in this. So any type of relief funds or any mechanisms that you use that would be appropriate for this time. So it would be my hope that it would be retroactive. Now the SRF is reimbursement based. So I don't know how retroactive it would have to be. If they pass it pretty soon, we really won't be taking any reimbursements for quite a while, and the closing, I don't know how far out the closing is, May. So depending on, you know, when they pass that, you know, I don't have any idea in terms of how they mix, and I don't know how much money in the Senate, the state bill is counting on federal infrastructure dollars, or if it's using the $6 billion ARPA funds for the state. I think it's a mixture of both in that bill, but
And I think still being negotiated as well, so.
sure.
Okay, that's helpful and good to know that MML and MTA are advocating for that retroactive provision. So we're not left out of some assistance on this if it's made available.
And I did share with them our bid results so they can use that. And I think we got some information today. The Detroit water system put something out, also is 40% over estimated bid. So these are just, and we've heard from carts and other thing, water main projects are coming in 25% over. So these are just kind of extraordinary circumstances right now.
Okay. And then, oh, sorry, I just had a question for Ernie as well. So on these bids, do you have a sense, I'm assuming there's a lot of detail in there. I know labor costs are up, material costs are up, and there's a lot of uncertainty, especially around the material costs with inflation and that. Do you have a sense of where kind of, is it kind of equal in both? Is it more on the material side? And then I guess I'll let you answer that and I just have a quick follow-up. Sorry.
I'll actually have Brent come up and help. Brent's done probably more of the digging into some of those fine details. So I'll let him maybe summarize what he's seeing.
A lot of it is material based. You know, we've seen structural steels went up 500%. You know, electrical components have gone up, 50 to 100%. It's harder for us to track that labor component of it, but we definitely know there are limitations on labor and people that are available. So, and because of that, contractors are adding in cost for that too. But a good portion of it is just material cost and lead times.
And I imagine some of that is speculating what those costs are going to be because they're not buying everything today. They don't have a fixed price that they can guarantee. And so for their sake, I understand completely for the contractors, they're probably erring on the side of the high end so that they're not left footing the bill for materials beyond what they bid. Do we have any provisions or is that a thing that can be done in these contracts where if prices stabilize and if there are reduced costs on there that we benefit from that difference, or is that not allowed?
Yeah.
It just feels like, I don't know. I'm just curious if there's some way to at least try and benefit if there are, some reduction or stabilizing, maybe costs don't go up as high as expected. Is there any way we can see some of, if that benefit can be shared?
So that kind of question came up during the bidding process of risk and who's, the way kind of the standard process works is the contractor has to figure out what they need to carry for inflation of labor and materials through the length of the project. And that's a standard approach. And so they're carrying that risk that if things go up 10% and he only carried 6%, well, then that's going to come out of their bottom line. It came, it was a very hot topic during bidding. We actually reached out to SRF to see what flexibility we would have from the standard approach. And frankly, we didn't get any really good guidance. There was some talk about, could you come up with like a clause, an escalation clause where you kind of said, okay, well, the owner will accept, $3 million worth of risk, a certain percentage. And once that happens, and up to that amount will help contribute and pay additional funds up to that cap, and above that it's still your risk. So it kind of shifted a little bit of that risk to the township, realizing that if prices went down in the other direction, that they would have to give money back on the other end. Unfortunately, we couldn't find a model, a contractual model that was well used, time tested. And what's really difficult and frustrating is it's not just one item. If it was steel, we could go to an index fund, a price per raw ton of steel. And if it fluctuates, we'll use that as your baseline and we can track it up and down. But literally we're hearing steel, copper, aluminum, concrete, cement, masonry. I mean, it's like on a project like this, we've got hundreds of materials and it's like, which ones, what are we going to make eligible? What are we going to index them to? And it just felt like if we put something together, we could potentially step into a contractual situation we wouldn't know how to handle, or set up a situation that we could be taken advantage of by the contractor. So after we had much internal discussion about trying to do that, but lacking any good time-tested model, contractual model, we decided not to move forward. So unfortunately, no, we're not going to be able to pull money back from the contractor unless out of the goodness of their heart they want to do that. But it is the risk is on them should it continue to increase ever higher. But certainly a good portion of their number, I'm sure, is gauging that risk, because if we award next week, some of these materials are going to be ordered for 18 months or longer, and what happens in that 18-month period. So they are taking considerable risk.
Thank you.
I wanted you to see if you can explain me what the importance is of the grip building, and if you in fact if it doesn't go in phase one, what's the importance of it and why can we wait to put it back into phase two? One of my questions.
The importance of it's a part of our headworks that removes the sand, silts, and they call it detritus. So anything that's inorganic, it'll settle out and remove from the process because it's non-treatable. It's basically you take it to a landfill or another. We take ours to Granger landfill. So that's the importance of it. It kind of separates what you can treat and what you cannot treat. I'm not gonna lie, our headworks the grid area is in bad shape. But it's something that we thought we could pull out to delay those dollars financially. It definitely is going to have to be in the front half of phase two. But the grit work is something that our staff can do in-house. If something fails on it, we can put the Band-Aid on it. We can rebuild it. We've already rebuilt it twice. Over the years. Now we rebuild it in like kind. What we're planning on the new grit area is 2020, technology, 2022 technology. So we would not be able to put it as, what we're going to build it to, but we'll build it to what we currently have. So it is somewhat of a risk, but again, it's something that we can do in-house. The other big ticket is Ernie kind of mentioned that, the grit building is really composed of 3 buildings on the ground level and then a basement level. This project was only going to incorporate a very small, about a third of it. So there's still a considerable amount of project in this space that kind of overlaps in phase two. So you kind of start a project and then you're coming after the fact and kind of working that same space. So it does kind of make sense to try to bundle that all in one project to keep it cleaner, especially, working with, it could be different contractors. As one contractor finishes one section, the next one has to come in and there's an overlap there. It can be complicated. So to answer your question, it kind of makes it a cleaner project, and it's something that if it does fail, we feel that we can struggle through to phase two.
My other subsequent question is, so what is your timeline on that? So that could we actually wait to bring that into phase two? What are you looking at?
Our original intention was to, this was going to be a 24-month, we adjusted it to a 30-month phase one project. Our intention was to start phase two and rebid it the spring of 2024. Yeah, thank you. So we're hoping 2024. Now, I have had talks with EGLE, if possible, extend our advanced wastewater treatment and PDS requirements, compliance requirements. But we still wouldn't be able to extend them beyond 2030 anyway. It all depends on timing and in the market and how things work. Our growth in the township, it could be starting phase 2 in 30 months or possibly just a year or two delay. So.
Okay, just one more. So in your staff recommendation number 5, so you account for the lengthened construction schedule and the allowed alternatives for materials? Because that's the recommendation, correct? Yeah, in the first part under the bid results, you guys said steps taken during bidding and responses to cost escalation concerns, and then you had lengthened construction schedule and allowed alternates for materials. Is that also part of like option 5? Did you guys include that? Did you consider that in there?
The extension of the phase 1 was just basically adding 6 months to the total length of the phase 1 contract. Again, just try to help with the risk. The grit area addendum was to, if we omitted that work in phase 1 and pushed it to phase 2, how much of a savings would we get? And I hate to use the word savings because we're not saving addendum 1. It could cost us equal or more, but it adjusts the financial burden on the loan on phase 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both, Rick and Ernie, for this report and it's always so detailed perfectly. I really like how you broke down where we are and what are the options. And I am in favor of option 5 as you're recommending. And Andrea, trustee Andrea had the same question I did. My question was really, is there any way to amend the language or the contract to receive any savings on materials? So that was my first question, and you covered that well. The second one I wanted to ask is, and I don't know that there is, because it sounds like dealing with the contract, there's limited models that are available. But I was wondering if there can be any conversations with whichever bid you take, the lowest bid, for example, that if there's any opportunity for bulk purchasing, for example, if they're going to be working on another project and they can buy more steel for that project, is there any way they can consider bulk purchasing as a way to make it better for all of their clients? But I know the two major costs are materials and labor, and I'm not at all surprised that they're higher, and I know you aren't either. And I don't think they're going to get any lower. So that was my question to you guys. Is there any way to talk to them about bulk purchasing?
We can talk to Tetra Tech about that. I'm not, normally these contractors are going to run projects on a contract basis. So, one of the things we have, not necessarily in bulk, but just in terms of kind of expediting the ordering process, getting the reviews done on the shop drawings, submittals early on, kind of making sure that they hit the ground running with that process so they can get his ordered as quickly as possible, both to kind of lock in pricing and mitigate any potential shipping delays. So ordering in bulk is not something we thought about, but we can certainly bounce it around and see if there's any merit to that.
Okay. And my next question is really for Brian and probably Courtney about the having to increase the water rates, the user rates. Is there any way to consider using the American Rescue Plan dollars to offset that? I don't know if that's allowable. And if so, if there's something that could come to the board for a discussion for everybody to talk about when you're going to be dealing with those increased rates.
Yeah, it is allowable. I think it is we had a total of 3.4 million, so it's kind of a drop in the bucket because we've spent maybe $1 million of the,
But we have
Rescue
another
funds.
second coming of dollars, right?
That's the total.
Is that, oh, that was
We've
the
done
total.
one
So we got half of
1.7.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Just looking for ways to
Yeah.
it's a good.
make it easier for our residents. There's a lot going on. So if there's a
Absolutely.
way we can do that, I know you, Courtney and Brian will look at some ways
Yeah,
to do
we had
that.
originally kind of sketched out possibly Carrier Creek. And then that actually was covered by the GM project because it does affect that. So we did benefit from the fact that that Carrier Creek project that we would have likely had to have done at some point in cash will be covered by the GM money. So that did kind of benefit the fund as far as what other projects we had, because I think that was a good point that, this isn't the only thing we have to do.
Right.
But yeah, we're definitely looking at whatever we can to offset, because yeah, we know it's not a great time for people to have rate increases either. So.
Cool. Thank you. Those were my questions, Kim.
I was just I wanted to confirm with Rick or Courtney or Ryan. So I know that the water fund is healthy. Can we, for example, not do a water rate increase for a couple years and do a greater sewer so that the net, you know what I'm saying?
We
Because
were
you can't use water money to pay
Right.
for this.
We were sort of doing that because we've only been doing 1.25% in water the last few years and kind of had gauged that. So I don't know, I wouldn't be comfortable with zero because I don't want that fund to get in trouble, but we have held that down to 1s, 2s, and I think we could continue that. Because we will have the GM. So GM's impact, the battery plant's impact on sewer is approximately 500 to 600,000 a year, which I have built into the rate study, which does help. But the impact on the water is over $1 million a year. So that could, if that does come to fruition, as they're estimating, that could offset rate increases in the water fund. So when we'll know that in 2025, which is actually good timing because that's when the phase 2 starts to really put pressure on the sewer system.
So that just could give us a chance to be more moderate, at least with the increases on the water.
Correct.
On the
Yeah,
water
and that
side.
could even give us a chance to be, to maybe skip, where I wouldn't be comfortable with that without that, but that is a very large portion of, or a large revenue increase to the system. So.
And I agree with trustee Brewer. I support 5, your recommended thing. I really do not support kicking the can down the road more than 30 days. I mean, we've already got burned this spring on kicking the can down the road and trying to rebid, and we found ourselves with a bigger bid. So I think we have to be respectful of what Eagle has told us our timeline is, and we don't want to put the township in a position where we have a failure that we knew was on the horizon if nothing happens by pushing it down and letting that time lapse. I don't think it speaks well to our leadership. So I support your recommendation.
I don't know who will answer this or if it's already been answered. Forgive my ignorance about this, but could someone walk me through like the high level steps? So once the bid is awarded, so let's say, we choose in a month, how does the money shuffle? We don't get the 84 million or 73 million from the state immediately. We don't pay it back immediately. How does that work? You said it's reimbursement, so we have to spend the money and then get reimbursed by the state. Can you give me a high level on how everything's paid for?
Well, so once we award, then there's a month or 2 delay where you get under contract.
Okay.
There'll be no immediate charges from the contractor until they start ordering materials and hit the site. And then contractors are paid on a monthly draw, so they're getting paid for what they're doing the previous month. So those, that $73 million to the contractor will be spread out over 30 months with it, being loaded heavily in the middle and kind of ramping up and then ramping back down. So there's a cash flow there over 30-month period, and you submit those reimbursement requests to SRF as you go.
Okay.
That said, there will be some reimbursable costs that we've already got paid out of pocket that we could submit right away.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that's one of the nice things about it is you're not saying, okay, we're gonna issue $73 million in bonds and then you get $73 million and you're locked in, right? So it's all about, because one of the things with SRF is they put a 6% contingency on the entire project cost. So let's say, we don't use that, hopefully, right? Then you don't take that money. So it's only about what you request reimbursement for.
Okay.
So it's under our control what we're requesting. We're not locked into 73 or $83 million.
So with that, by its very nature, then if the price of materials do go down, then we're only paying what those prices are. We're not paying what the prices
Yeah,
of
you'd be
material are
paying
now.
whatever was in the contract is the issue. It's a lump sum contract. Yeah, it's not an itemized like per item type of contract.
So the materials are not reimbursement itemized, but the labor is. You only pay for the hours that people work and the people who did the work.
Well, what it is they take their bid, it's 73,750 somewhere in there, and they give us a breakdown of approximately where all these dollars are at. Eventually, you're going to pay that full 73,750. It's just a matter of you're paying it over time based upon their 5% done, 10% done. So you're going to pay the full bid amount. It's just spread out over time.
And that's because they've assumed that risk, as you said before,
Yes.
because it might be that they underestimated and they have to spend more money
Correct.
than what we pay them.
Yep.
I guess the only piece that we might not pay out of that is the contingency that Courtney mentioned, which is about 6%, which is what, $4 million or $5 million. But there's no guarantee of that. And in any project, especially this size, there's going to be some of that we have to spend for, changes or whatever, but.
And also for example, the 6 million that's allotted to this from the GM money, that would just be something we wouldn't pull from the loan.
Right.
Off one of the pay applications, we would just consider that the payment for that. So, but yeah, so total project cost for this isn't just the 73 million. It's the 73 million plus the 2 million we've already incurred with Tetra Tech, plus the 2 million we're going to incur with Tetra Tech. So it's more than just that 73 million that we're using as our number. It's just that's the
But that
actual
helps
bid.
me understand what it means to accept the bid and the contract, and where the money goes and everything. So thank you very much.
I think the other mechanic of that, trustee Bowen too, is we do not make principal payment until the substantial completion of the project. We do make interest payments on what we've drawn down for that 30 months, but we will not make a principal payment on the loan till the 30 months.
Yeah, 2025.
You guys, we definitely appreciate all the work that's gone into figuring out what to do next after the bids came in way higher than what anybody expected. I know it kind of knocked everybody for a little bit of a loop there, and I know you guys been working hard since then to kind of review things and try to figure out what's next and stuff. So we appreciate these options and stuff that got brought forward. But I would say personally, I don't support option 5. If we're glad for a month and shave $1 million off from a $73 million project, that doesn't change the overall cost of the project. It's not going to change the amount of money we have to ultimately go to the ratepayers with. All it does is delay it. And we're talking about the 6% contingency. I'm sure there'd be $1 million fluctuation in there somewhere anyway. So I don't even know what the benefit of going back and asking them to nickel and dime on materials to shave off maybe $1 million. Let's just award this, move forward, and focus on, trying to find the other, sources of money to help pay for it. I think that makes more sense than trying to do the nickel dime approach, which at the end of the day doesn't really accomplish anything anyway.
Have you weighed that?
I just, want to hear what they think about that, because that sounds good. I'm with Ken.
I agree.
We certainly discussed it. And it's definitely an option. I'm comfortable with the bids. I'm comfortable moving forward with the project, the design. I guess the only caveat I had was, there were, from discussions with the bidders, there are some areas that, maybe they interpreted something that wasn't necessarily intended a certain way. And so there's probably some efficiencies, some, deductions that will probably help get things done a little more efficiently. And to me, spending a month to, evaluate some of those and implement some of those, it didn't feel like a big negative. It felt like a chance to, just kind of get things dialed in a little bit more before we hit the road. But that said, I'm not like, if you wanted to move forward, I'm ready to do it too. So.
I'm not familiar with commercial contracting corp. So give me a little, I know we don't have to take the lowest bid. We take the bid that we have the most confidence in.
Yep.
So who is commercial contracting?
So they are a pretty large general contracting firm out of Auburn Hills. They have local experience on the GM assembly plant out here. They actually built the wastewater treatment component of that plant. They do a lot of GM automotive work, heavy steel, heavy construction. They're doing work at the Detroit plant, Flint, Ann Arbor. They checked out pretty good. We had a really good post-bid interview with them. The subcontractors were the kind of the primary three: earthwork, electrical, mechanical, were the same between them and Granger, the next bidder. So I think the differentiator for me they're both going to self-perform concrete, which on a project like this is kind of a big thing because it helps them control their schedule a little bit. But they do a lot of self-perform work that I think would be beneficial. So I'm comfortable. I hadn't heard of them before this. They've done quite a bit of research since they turned in their bid, talking to Tetra Tech, looking at other references that they gave, and the post-bid interview went really well too. So.
If you were to proceed as Ken suggested, it does sound like though that there might be a little bit of cleanup that you might want to do or touch up with them on a couple of things that might bring it down. But can you do that and not delay it?
So really the difference is in the two options, whether we award next Monday night or in a month. That month just gives us a little bit of time to talk to both bidders. The idea would be to issue them a list of things that they could consider alternate pricing on, but they would then fill those out and submit those in a couple of weeks, and then we'd look at what the numbers came in for the two low bidders and then make a final decision. So that would be one option. That delay gives us time to do that process. If we award next Monday, we don't have time to do that process. So that means we need to pick one, and we can still do some negotiation with them and work through that. It's just in lacking a competitive component to it.
What's your comfort level? Do you have a preference?
Well, my recommendation was
It's
5,
fine.
just because I felt like we could dial some things in, but it wasn't like it. I mean, I'm ready to go with 6 either. So I don't know that the month hurts us if we can dial some things in. I don't know why we would do that.
It doesn't set the timeline of the project off vastly by going.
No, I think we're still I wouldn't want to go much more than a month, because then you're starting to start construction later in the summer. But I think a month gives us still time to hit the ground in June. And so we have the good part of the weather to get going this summer.
Ernie, is there any concern if we delay a month till we award the contract that one of these bidders or both could be accepting other contracts and we lose it, or are we confident we don't run the risk of losing one of our options or both?
Well, Contractually, they had to post a 5% bid bond. So 5% of $73 million, they would have to forfeit if they pull out of their bid. It's a 90-day bid hold. So they have to guarantee their bid for 90 days.
Okay.
If they
so
don't
we're
do that,
protected.
they're on the hook for 5%.
Okay,
Both low bidders were using it, saving some subcontractors, so.
And we did kind of communicate with them that it could be Monday night or it could be a month away, and they understand it. And I think they know it's a big deal. We have to work through it. So.
okay, thank you.
I agree with Supervisor Fletcher that I believe in our team and our consultants and the design work that's gone into this for a couple of years, that I think that we have a good plan, that you're confident in it, and that we can proceed next week.
Other comments, questions on the board? So let's see where we're at now. Do folks want to proceed the next week, or are we gonna still wait? I don't think I've heard from everybody on exactly where they want to go at this point.
I'm sorry, explain to me again what the difference is if we go next week versus a month from now. It's just, it's the competition is.
Yeah, so if we go next week, then between now and next Monday, we will write a memo of recommendation for one of the two firms. And we will award at their bid price, and off we go. We won't have time to get into the weeds on any cost reductions if we still want to do that. Going out a month would give us time to ask for cost reductions on some specific items that seem to make sense from both of them, and they still can both submit pricing that could, keep the second low bidder in the running, and it just delays that decision which one we're going to go with.
Right, so then at that point, we just decide, and then that's the decision. that we go
Yeah,
with,
so
right?
that's, you pick a contractor Monday night, or you pick them in 5 weeks or 4 weeks.
So if we go next week, they can't do any of the cost reductions to me without our approval.
Yeah, we would award, so if we went that route, we'd give you our recommendation. If you went with it, we would award it to them. We could still negotiate with them after the fact and come up with a change order amount to reduce it.
That's what I want.
But they just wouldn't have a competitor there keeping them honest in terms of what they're giving back for what we're asking to change. So there's that's why I say you lose that competitiveness of the deduct process.
I was just gonna say, why couldn't we wait just to see what he comes up with? And then at that point, we've already decided that we want to move on anyway. No more delays, so just figured, why not give them the time to do it?
I'm inclined to go with the 5 weeks.
I'd say let's just go forward.
I just have a question before I answer that. So the upside of waiting a month is potentially your guesstimate, not like holding you to this, but is at best 1 to 2 million. So not that that's nothing, I don't want to minimize that, but 1 to 2 million in savings. Is there any downside? Are we facing increased costs then that we would be responsible for, or are those in delaying a month, or are those falling on the contractor because their bid guarantees that?
They have to hold their bid for 90 days. We could actually not award until the end of May, and they would still have to honor the price that they turned in.
Okay.
The reason we were trying to move this fast in terms of getting to an award next week is SRF has a schedule that they want you to hit to get you from bid opening to loan closing according to their standard process. Well, that would be next week. Okay. But we've gotten confirmation from them that they'll work with us, be lenient given, how much overage we've got here to try to figure out. So they'll move us through at the schedule we need to stay on, but I don't know if I answered that question.
No, that's helpful to know. And given that, I think if there's not a downside really to us waiting the month and there's the potential, I know 1 or 2 million in this, the bigger scope of this first phase is, you know, smaller, but that still means it has an impact on what we would have to look at and increase rates and things like that. So I think there's value and I understand having that competitive opportunity to evaluate where costs may be shaved a little bit. So I think I would lean that way just to show residents and our ratepayers, we're doing everything we can to keep these costs down despite the circumstances.
I got a question to ask.
Ernie, I can't remember, what were we really anticipating phase one to come in at? How much over are we? Is it, what does 40% mean?
53 million was the estimate.
We came at 73, so we're talking 10% of the overage if we can get, we're taking 10% off the overage.
If we can get a couple.
If we can
million.
get 2 million.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of moving forward. I believe that our team has found all of the corners to cut. And, you know, I think it's more important that we focus on the quality of our water and sewer treatment.
I am like Andrea, I still like option 5. I think if it's really doing our due diligence by, if they're saying to us, there's 2 to 3 million, 1 to 3 million that you can do, and there's no capacity issue for you guys by doing this, taking this extra time, you know, I'm hoping that's not the case where you're gonna have to stop something to do this to try to save, but anytime we can save money for our residents, I think it's the right thing to do. I know that's a small amount of money when you're talking 70 million, but 1 to 3 million, I think it's worth it if it's not slowing down the timeline or putting us in jeopardy for the loan closing. I'm not hearing any obstacles that would prohibit from going with the option 5 that you recommend. So I would go with 5.
I'm glad Vonna said that so we don't end up 3-3. But just to head that anyway, and it does, you know, I'm perfectly fine with the option 5 too. It's just a, you know, a question of whether or not at the end of the day, it really, you know, saves us or anything. If we should just keep moving forward and work out those savings as, you know, if there are there as the project goes forward. I think that, you know, it's just unfortunate, you know, nature of where we're ended up. You know, we had a very thoughtful, methodical process to get here, and it is now bit us in the butt because we're now going to be paying a lot more, and you know, we're going to face the exact same thing with our police building to where that project probably won't even make sense to go forward with now. So, you know, I think I just don't want us to make bad decisions where, like, I remember Mount Hope Park, we built half a pathway instead of a whole one. Now it's going to cost the taxpayers an astronomical amount to build the rest of the pathway. So we thought we were doing a nice, good thing then, when in reality we weren't doing a good thing at all for them. So I just want us to move forward on this project, delivering what the residents need, and not try to cut corners and do things to shave costs that at the end of the day really don't benefit anybody.
Understood.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Anything else this evening? Any final public comment from anybody? We'll see no further business before us. We are adjourned.
No, I'm good.
Oh, she had some?
No.